For those that don't know, I'm Dennis Scully. I host the Business of Home podcast, and I also have the privilege of being the curator of the Dialogues on Design series here at nysid. It is one of my favorite things that I get to do. And I am particularly thrilled to have you all back here in person. It has been years since we've gotten to do this, and so I thank all of you for coming. It means a great deal to all of us, so we really appreciate it. A little bit about this program, just so you know. Dialogues on Design is one of the ways that we raise money for scholarship programs. So it's sponsorships and it's subscriptions, and through all of that, we raise money for our diversity scholarship and our pre-college scholarship program, which is a program that we're hoping to introduce interior design as a career path for young people from often underrepresented communities. So I'm grateful to everyone who's helped make this series possible, and I want to give special thanks to Holly Hunt, Kathy Doyle, Andrea Fonstock, Ellen Kravitz, Kravitz Inc., Peter Penoyer, Cynthia Murphy, and Gil Schaefer. Their generosity, yes please. Because they are really what helps to make this happen, and we're all very grateful for their generosity. Tonight, I have the pleasure of speaking with design educator and equity advocate and so much more, Kia Weatherspoon. Now, Kia, as I mentioned, honorary doctorate here at the New York School of Interior Design. That's probably the top line. Do you put that, is that top line on your resume?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay. She also, I mean, numerous honors and awards, and rightfully so. I believe you're probably one of the most decorated.
I am.
I think so.
I
Okay.
am.
So she holds the record for that.
I do.
But I mean, whether it's the ASID National Design for Humanity Award or the ICFF Designer of the Year Award, I mean, the list is long.
It is.
Yes. And deservedly so,
It
Kia.
is.
May we say that?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Not enough, really, right? Is how you feel? Yeah. Well, we're gonna try and really drive that home tonight. But we are really thrilled to have you here, and I think that part of the reason so many people even now are tiptoeing into the room is that people are really excited to hear you speak, and I'm excited to get into some of the conversations that you and I have off the record, that some of which we might be able to share tonight, and
Absolutely.
you know, but. Before we dive into a lot of the hot button issues, for the audience that might not be familiar with your story, okay? So I thought just to give them a little taste, right, of, as you see, some military uniform is being worn tonight. That is also part of Kia's story. So tell us briefly in your own words a little bit of the story of you getting here.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Okay. First of all, we're going to have fun.
We are going to have a great time.
So I always say there are two defining moments of my life that kind of guided me to this path. The first one was my brother was incarcerated for 15 years, and that took my family on this journey of going in and out of prison facilities. And that was the first time I realized like space mattered, and that predominantly people of color traverse through really shitty spaces. The second one was I was going to school to be a ballet dancer. I didn't get financial aid, and I had this light bulb moment. I said, I'm going to join the military, and I'm going to get stationed on the East Coast, and then I'm going to dance at night. Ballet, and then
because that sounds like the military,
I'm gonna
right?
serve my country during the day. I got stationed in Wichita, Kansas, at McConnell Air Force Base. Nothing kicks ass without tanker gas, and that was in July of 2001. And then September 11th happened, and I went on my first of 5 deployments to the Middle East. And my first deployment was to Al Udeid Air Base in Doha, Qatar. It was a bare base. It was at the height of the war. It was in Tent City, and I was in a tent with about 14 other women, and I needed some privacy, one so I could cry. But I was a prideful little 19-year-old, and I was not going to cry in front of these other women. So I took some sheets, I hung it from the top of the tent, and I made 3 sheet walls around my cot. And I bawled for a baby for like 15 minutes. And it was something about how that space, it healed me, it brought me comfort, it brought me solace. And I would do that 4 more times. So when I got out of the military, active duty military, I said, I want to do this thing where I create spaces for people. And then that is how I found this path, or the path found me, of interior design. And I would serve my country for a total of 21 years. I retired last year, February 21st, 2022. Active duty Guard Reserve. And just to kind of bookend it, when I started the service at the height of September 11th, there was this pride, because we were all a part of something bigger than ourselves. I ended my service getting activated at the DC Guard in June of 2020 when George Floyd was murdered. And there was this moment of like, when you serve, they teach you to be a good wingman, right? Service before self, integrity in all you do. And I didn't want to show up. As a Black woman in the nation's capital, a march, riots happening all around this racial uprising, I didn't feel proud to wear that uniform as a Black woman serving my country. So my military career was bookended by these 2 extremes, but the latter always reminded me, like, when you can't show up for something with full integrity, it is time to walk away. And that is why I retired. But I am so proud of my military career and my service. One of the best things I've ever done.
Really, is that how you feel?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Because it gave you what?
Oh, service before self. Attitude reflects leadership. It taught me tolerance. I remember, like, is that me? Or is it Jesus? Oh. Is it you, Jesus?
Yeah, that's, it's Elijah.
It's okay.
It's giving you a message. Yeah.
So I remember it was, again, we're in the Middle East, and we were working 12 on, 12 off shifts. And there was this white guy there, and he was like, so I don't know what type of music you listen to, but I want to listen to this. And I was like, okay. And he was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, because I've never been around a Black person before. I was like, okay. Right? And again, like, it could have been this thing, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. Like, we were there for something bigger than ourselves. It also taught me I can say anything to anybody I want as long as I do it with respect. And put Sir Ma'am on the back of it and a smile, right? Now it's a smile, I don't say Sir Ma'am. But I wouldn't have learned those lessons if it had not been for the military. And then the most important one is attitude reflects leadership. If everyone on the team is miserable, burnt out, that's a leadership problem. And I also got that from the military. And then attention to detail. In basic training, they made you fold your t-shirts in these 6x6 squares, and then you would tweeze it so it could be flat. What are we doing this for? What is this? But years later, when I was inspecting oxygen masks and night vision goggles, it was literally about the attention to detail and carrying the smallest task all the way through. I would not have gotten that had I not served in the military. One of the best things I've ever done. I would do it the exact same way over again. Wouldn't change a thing.
You would?
Yep.
But at the end, and you mentioned the time of the George Floyd. Okay, so what was going on there?
So let me tell you why. At the end, so my job towards the end, I was like HR, right? So in the military, when you're HR, the main goal is for you to make sure everyone is where they're supposed to be. So we get activated, the DC Guard gets activated, and they call everybody, everyone comes. And one of my coworkers, her name was Kelly Wilson, she and I showed up, then my other colleagues showed up, and then they were like, well, who doesn't have their bags? Now, most people in the Guard know how to get out of a thing. And my coworker was like, oh, I don't have my bag. And then my team member, my coworker Kelly Wilson, she was like, I have my bag. And I was like, okay, I could say I don't have my bag, but then I would have been a bad wing woman. And because I was not gonna leave my wingman by herself, Kelly and I were the only 2 people from our shop of 11 who were literally out on the streets in riot gear, 50 extra pounds. So And she and I ended up having these really intense days patrolling the monuments together. And while I was miserable, and we would have people walk by us and be like, "We see you, sis. What you doing in that uniform?" But she was my wingman, and I had to show up for her. Even against all the angst that was happening, I had to be a good wingman. I would never, ever, ever leave anyone hanging. And we kind of had that same culture at my company. We always say, nobody's gonna drown, right?
Yeah.
You gotta be a good wingman. The military taught me that. Even in that extreme, I was a good wing woman. It was legit. It was legit. It was shitty, but it was good.
Well, and as you say, it set the foundation.
Absolutely.
For how you approached leadership.
Leadership, hierarchy, right? And it's so funny because I've won all the awards because I work hard and I've earned them. And as a woman, I'm not supposed, oh my God, I'm so humble. No, I have a beast of a work ethic. My work ethic is real. That is why I win all the awards. I do not need the validation. But I think this notion of, now I'm an illuminaire. No, I'm just Kia.
Yeah.
Right? Respect is given whether you're the janitor, whether you're the CEO, whether you're the receptionist. And the military taught me, like, you respect all people. Your rank don't matter if you treat people like poo-poo. It don't matter. If you don't extend the same grace and respect to all people, that doesn't make you a good leader. That's what makes you a good leader, right? And I got that from the military. You could be a general, but if the people you work with don't respect you, it don't make no difference.
So take us from the military to the world of design. And
so military, moved to Philadelphia, which I adored. That's a great city. I went to community college. I got an associate's degree in AutoCAD. Then I decided to, while I was doing that simultaneously, I was working for a hotel management company, started out as a receptionist, making a whopping $28,000 a year, and I thought that was the business. And in that's where I kind of first got my taste of design. Again, work ethic, knowing how to sell. I convinced my leadership to create a position for me as a design coordinator. And laid out the plan, the path that happened, got that position, doubled my salary. Again, work ethic, knowing your why, knowing your value. Wanted to get a design degree, couldn't do both. My first boss out of the military was perfect. He was rich, he was white, he was sexist. So I learned all these challenges.
Checked all the boxes
right
for
away.
you. Yeah.
So I go back to him with a plan and say, I want to get an interior design degree. But at that time, you couldn't get it at night. So again, I laid out a plan, said I'll take a pay cut, but I want to go to school. And then he looks at me, rich, white, and sexist, and he looks down at my blouse, and I'm not a busty girl. And he goes, we just gave you all this money, so you can either work for us or you can go back to school, and you cannot do both. Right then I learned I was not motivated by money, and no one could or could not tell me how I could progress my career path. So I quit, went and got a bachelor's degree at Moore College of Art and Design. Glorious, loved it, adored it, all women's college. Graduated, got a job, moved to DC for a guy. We broke up, I stayed there. But I only worked in a firm for 2 years. And right off the bat, I was burnt out, I was tired. I just spent all this money on this degree. I had pulled an all-nighter. At 18, it's cute. At 33, it was not. And I remember we did a presentation, went home, took a 30-minute nap on the floor, went back, presented to the client. After being in the office all night, my boss didn't say take a comp day, leave early. We just kept working. And then 2 weeks later, she goes, Kia, you just don't seem like you're here. And I was like, yeah. And then I started to think, like, is it the job, is it me, or is it the profession? It was that job. And then I quit, and I was like, let me go work somewhere where there's leadership that looks like me. This was in 2012.
Yeah.
So it didn't exist. Like,
so it wasn't easy to come by.
No.
There weren't a lot of those.
I'm going to start a business. And I started a business. Didn't have a business plan. I did not have 6 months of my salary saved up. It was literally like, right now, don't build anyone else's dream. Build your own. I felt it in my soul.
And at the time, what did you imagine that business was going to be?
You know, you become an interior designer. I'm going to be a hospitality designer. I'm going to do hospitality, luxury hospitality, because that's what we're told, right? Interior design is a luxury. You want to do the luxury work. And I was doing luxury multifamily. So I just immediately started to go after the, I figured out how to get an LLC. I figured out a lot of things on my own. And then someone called me and was like, hey, could you do a nonprofit project? I was like, I just quit my job.
There's no part of me that could do a nonprofit.
I don't have any money. Yes, let's do some free work. This is where the universe guides you. I do this nonprofit project for domestic violence survivors. It's 12 women, 32 children, and they all look like me. And I walk in there to say, I want to provide interior design services. And they're like, girl, calm down. And then they're like, I'm sorry, we don't need this. Now, in that moment, I was like, really? So it went from, we don't need this, and to me being determined to really, really engage them in the design process and to design with them, not for them. And in doing that, it went from, we don't need this, to like, oh my God, I thought this was stuff I could only see on TV. Is this something I could do one day? And another really poignant thing was the women, when we asked them what they needed, they could never tell me what they needed, but they could always tell me what the woman next to them needed. And a big part of our industry is about the pretty picture and the big reveal, which we had. And this woman, she came up to me when the project was done, and she said, Miss Kia, when I walked into this room, I realized change was possible for me. And right then I knew that people who need access to well-designed spaces the most, they don't know they don't have it, they don't know they need it, and they don't have an advocate. And right then I knew I was going to build my entire practice around being that advocate. And I've done it for 10 years. 10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
10 years. So, and tell us the kinds of projects
So
that
I like
you've
to
worked
strip it
on.
down. So I'm a luxury trade craft service provider. I'm an interior designer. I have all the fancy degrees and a doctorate. Thank you.
Did we mention she has a doctorate
did.
from NYSID?
And
Yeah.
I design housing for poor people. Affordable housing, ghetto, Section 8. And the new thing to say is workforce housing. Right?
Which is what?
It's housing for like the grocery store worker, the teacher, because if it was just the, people with an AMI of 30%, less than 30%.
Yeah.
Right now in housing, they try to create these hierarchies, but at the end of the day, we've designed for over 4,000 families, and the average median income for the families we serve is under 40% of the average median income in a city. So for example, in the city of Washington, D.C., that would be they make $30,000 to $40,000 a year, a family of 4. We design housing for them. Wow. Yes. And
Because those are the heroes, apparently.
Oh,
we learned that,
me.
right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
aren't you? So you're doing housing for the heroes.
But
So they're
this-
probably
but-
living pretty
No,
lavishly, would you?
But it's not. Yes, right. In the scheme of COVID, last year they were the unsung heroes, the grocery store workers, the baristas, and it was like, but did you think about the type of buildings that they live in? They're trash. They're ugly. They're hard. They have no softness, no windows, shitty lighting. The list goes on and on and on. If you think about the history of low-income housing, it's a dry read. A really good read is this book called The Color of Law. And it talks about how the government has systematically created segregation. It made sure people of color could not own homes, and how that affected 4 generations of families, right? So when I talk about the work that I do, I don't try to dress it up, because a lot of times what we are met with is, you're making it too nice for these people. And I'm like, okay. Not that they don't like the chair, they think the chair is ugly, not that it's too expensive, it's just too much for this demographic. And I said, well, what demographic is that? It's poor people. We inherently think they deserve less. And here I come saying, as an interior designer, do better to my architectural counterparts. The spaces that you create are trash.
right? Because you don't see your loved one as in a person who could be in that community. That's why these spaces have inherently look bad. So when people look at our work, they go, oh my God, it looks like a luxury building. It looks like I designed equitably for the people who need it the most and who deserve it. And I challenged everyone in that process who would not do better. That's what we get to do. And my projects won all the awards too because they look good.
And we're going to get to see some of them
Yeah.
in just a little bit. But that resistance that you met was shocking.
No,
Not shocking
No.
to you. No.
it grinded my gears. Like, it really makes me mad. It makes me mad. You know, in the workplace and as a woman, you can't show up and have all those feelings. Oh, just be reserved. No. If I didn't feel it, if I didn't look at some of the low income housing spaces that I've seen, if I didn't look at them and it like vividly like touched me in my soul to want to do better, we couldn't design the way that we do. And that is what's wrong with our industry. Everyone's trying to be like posh and perfect and this and that, but no one wants to feel and be like, is this something I would want from my grandmother, my mother, my son, whoever, and do better? You don't challenge your clients because, well, I gotta get the next fee. If I say something, if I say, hey, developer, you're being biased. If I say, hey, housing authority person, you're being biased. If I call these things to the carpet, I'm not gonna get another fee. I'm not gonna get another project. I had an architect tell me one time, he goes, well, we can't bite the hand that feeds us. I said, I bite the hand that feeds me every time and it keeps coming back. And you know why? Because as service providers, we forget how much power we have and we don't wield it, and we should, because what we do will affect 4 to 5 generations of people, and we don't look at it that way. And if we did, we would fight harder, we would push back, we'd get better fees, right?
Well, and that's one of the issues that I want to get into
Yep.
with you and that you and I have spoken about. But part of the reason that we wanted students here especially is because, as you and I have talked about, most of the students from NYSID aren't going to become residential interior designers. Some will, to be sure, but many are going to go off and work on hospitals and public spaces, and they have an opportunity to really change the look and feel and to change the whole way of thinking about these spaces. And let's talk about that.
So I think for me, the biggest kind of thing we should get away from is, I do residential, you do commercial, you do healthcare, you do this. We all just design for people at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And no matter what the building type is, inherently you need to bring softness, decoration, and adornment to all space types for them to feel comfortable, welcoming, and have radical hospitality. And I think that's what the future of this industry needs to realize. The project type doesn't matter. It's the lasting impact. And they have to be fearless. And they're not. They're scared. They're scared to show up as themselves. They're scared to express any emotion that really shows how passionate they are about what they're doing. And that fear of speaking up is, you're going to be in a client meeting at a hospital, designing an intensive care unit or something like that, and the fancy hospital operator, who's probably going to be 4 times your senior, is going to say something. You'd be like, really? And you're just going to sit there timid. Because I can't say anything because I'm the junior designer. I just graduated. I have to keep my job and pay all the student loan debt. But really, you should be like, excuse me, sir, can I ask a question? Can I speak up? That's what this next generation, and when I say generation, I don't mean age. I mean just the next wave of people into this industry. That is how they're going to move the needle if they use their voice, if they speak in terms and ways that are
true to them. Oh, okay, I can't be like you. Good, I don't want you to be like me. Be like you. I'm not special. I'm not special. I just work hard. I don't want people to feel like they have to be special to speak up. I want them to realize it's actually your job as a person and a creative in service of people. You always have to speak up. You always have to speak up. And when you do that, the money will continue to come. I'm serious.
I hear you. No. And you and I have spoken about that need to be fearless and to have a voice and to learn. Not everyone is as confident as Kia. And the question is, how can we teach the designers of the future to have greater confidence? And as you said earlier too, and this is an important part I know for you, one of the things that we have to teach is that it's a sales job.
Yeah.
You are selling at every turn. You are convincing that client, no, you need to use this, and here's why. And that confidence and that salesmanship, they tend to go hand in hand.
All right, so business 101, people buy into people, right? So a big part of Determined by Design success is we don't have a style. We don't believe in styles. We believe in the story of the people. Our concept development process for our projects is deeply, deeply rooted in history, community, and people. So for every one of our projects, we start back with who inhabited the land, not the site. The site was stolen, man-made, and bought, right? And in doing this, when we tell a developer, you need to put pink polka dots, some glitter, some plaid, and right? Every decision that we made was rooted from a historical fact in people, the makers of the communities, the illuminaires, right? So if every design decision I make is rooted in people, it is not arbitrary. It's not because evergreen fog was Pantone color of the year. And gray, beige, gray is trending right now, so your space should be whitewashed like that. If my story is rooted in the history of people, it's a better sell. I'm selling the people's story, right?
Yeah.
And as designers, if you think about things from a point of what's the people's narrative, not well, my style is this mid-century modern with a flair of traditional. That's bullshit. We're selling this false narrative of styles, and then all the spaces start to look the same. But if you sell the story of people and the history and the culture and those narratives, and you weave them into the spaces that you make, you are not making arbitrary trend stylistic decisions. You are making decisions rooted in people, and that's how you sell it. When we tell the story of a community to a developer, they'll be like, man, our architect didn't get any of that stuff. Well, how did they design their building? Hey, architect, what was your concept? Well, the developer wanted a contemporary building. What else? That's it? Oh, okay. Because we're so rushing to get to the deliverable. The next assignment's due, the next assignment's due. You don't take time and work the process. And the process starts with the research, story, the history, the community, the culture, and the context. It's just like in school. How many of y'all really take your time on your projects? Or you just look at a due date and be like, oh, I'm gonna be up all night and I gotta get it done. That translates into the real world. We don't slow down. We don't demand the time for our team to do the work that is of the people, to sell the people's story. That's the problem with our industry. And I need the future of this industry to be looking for the narrative of the people, of the communities, and this is how we kind of quasi-solve our diversity, equity, and inclusion problem.
Do we have a diversity and equity and inclusion problem? Wait, tell us more.
Oh, okay. One of the things, I love that I represent everything that this industry isn't. I'm Black. I use very colorful language. I got big hair. I do the work of the poor people. And I make a lot of money. I tell people I do affordable housing, I talk about equity, go, oh my God, are you a nonprofit? No, I'm not no nonprofit. I'm a very profitable business. Profitable. Our fees, we keep like, y'all too high because we good. But anyway. So a lot of the things that I do is so people realize you can make it. And it starts with the spaces they traverse through. People of color traverse through shitty spaces. And I look at, and I speak at a lot of schools, and I often hear, the white kids go, my grandmother was a designer, my uncle was a GC, my dad was an architect. I hear the black kids say, well, my grandmother went to dialysis every week and I would go with her and it was shitty. Now that's not to say every person of color comes through design from some trauma place, right? That's not what I'm saying. But it starts with thinking about how do our communities inspire people to want to see career paths and possibilities. 2020, before the pandemic, I went to speak at a school, and this black girl raised her hand, and she was like, I needed to see you today. And I said, well, why? And she's like, I literally just told my mom I want to quit this program because my teachers don't look like me, my classmates don't look like me, I've never met a black interior designer. And that was in 2020. 2020, right? So we do have a problem, but it starts with solving the way communities of color are designed for us to change it. And a lot of times people are like, I always like to say, I didn't win the Black Awards, no Black interior design. No, I won Designer of the Year. I just so happened to be black. And I win all the awards because I want students of color to realize you can do it too.
And they have to see it.
They have to see it. Oh, you gotta see it to be it. I still hear it all the time. I've never met a black interior designer. I went to a high school fair, met some parents and some kids, and this girl parent comes, she goes, what do you do? I said, I'm an interior designer. She said, black people could do that? I said, what?
Shut up.
Yes.
Shut up.
Yeah, shut the front door, yeah. And I'm not selling luxury. I trademark everything. We trademark anti-luxury, pro-people.
You got that on T-shirts, I saw.
I was gonna wear it today, but I went with glitter. I went with a little shimmy.
Yeah.
We've also trademarked 7 years ago design equity. Right? We didn't just start talking about equity, and a couple of years ago, a professional association, they used design equity, and I said, lawyer, get that. And they sent me this nasty letter, and like, we gave you an award, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, the irony, big association coming after me for using my trademark. I've been doing this work. I've built my business, my reputation on this work around design equity. Our new trademark is the People's Design Firm. Everything's trademarked. Business 101, trademark everything. 102.
And tell me what the People's Design Firm means.
I don't think there's a picture in the slide deck. We are the only firm in the nation that is black and indigenous led. My VP, Sequoia Hunter Suje, she's a Native American woman. She's a beast. I use a 4-letter word. She uses a 25-cent word. She got an anthropology degree. Like, it's just this great kind of just like contrast. Our firm represents the firm of the future. We are diverse because that's the type of firm I wanted to build. And I'll tell a quick story. So my firm has always been virtual by design. I was ahead of the curve again. I didn't trademark that yet. But anyway, so we were on a Zoom call having a morning chat, and one of our team members, his name is Rodney, and he was telling us about how, like, over the weekend, he bought a doll. And he was like, when I was a little kid, my dad wouldn't let me play with dolls because he said it was gay. Rodney's gay. And he was like, but I went with this doll, bought this doll over the weekend, and it just really healed my inner child. So me and Sequoia, we can get off the Zoom with the team. We were like, oh my God, we created a space where he can just be himself and tell that story. And she was like, oh my God, I know. But we built this firm.
How long did that go on for? Was that a,
Sometimes they be intense. But we built this firm where they're younger. They could show up as exactly who they are.
yeah.
Exactly who they are. I had a team member, Angelica, and I want to be real specific with my language. This is my team members. They don't work for me, they work with me. My team member, Angelica, she left, and she was like, I couldn't be myself at this firm. She went to a firm that had 300 people. I couldn't be myself, and she came back. She felt like she could show up as herself because they did a project, and the client told them to put a glass around the reception desk, and she was like, Kia, I had a visceral reaction because I remember growing up in the projects in Brooklyn and feeling that, and I couldn't say anything there. And if I was at DVD, I could have said something. I was like, but you can always say something. And then she came back. But I love my team. It's Carly, Bianca, Vicky. Like, Carly's she's our white girl. She's savage. she's savage.
Is that what you call her internally?
Internally to her face. Like, there are no cut cards at DBD because we're too busy trying to do the work.
Yeah.
And I remember she had so much courage because I'm pulling back a little bit from designing, and the client said, like, you know, I met them, and then Carly ended up presenting. And they were like, yeah, it was just a little young. And I was like, was it? Or are you just saying that because she was young? Don't come from my team member like that. Don't come, because she's a star. And sometimes I have to check people and my clients. You're not going to undercut my team, and you're not going to diminish them. And as leaders, sometimes we feel like I can't say that to the client. Sit my team out on a presentation. The man goes, in their face, well, where's Kia? I thought I was going to work with the girl who was on the cover of the Washington Post. I feel like I got stood up. And then Sequoia, I said, Sequoia, did he really say that to y'all? She was like, yeah. I cussed his ass out. I cussed him out good. He's still our client. He's still our client. You don't treat my people like that. The People's Design Firm is about truly being about the people we serve, and the people who do the work of the community. They my people. They so thorough. They so good. They so good.
So let's pull up some images and talk a little bit more
For my fancy work,
about this
my
firm,
award-winning work,
and your award-winning work, and get into some more of the specifics of your approach to the whole thing. But I do want to talk about how frustratingly little seems to have really happened since George.
You want to talk about that now?
Well, I just, like, while we're keying up these slides, I just feel like, I mean, and I know it's a big thing to unpack.
It is, no, it's not actually. It's very complicated. It's called money. Money. Dollars. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So this is what I feel like. All these company-made statements. You made a statement, you put up the black square. That was the thing, right? To put up the black square. It was a hashtag. It was all the things. But if you didn't pay the people of color in your actual company, you ain't do anything. If it don't start with if you don't clean your house first, you ain't do nothing. That's the problem with industry. Jack Travis told me to really make change, we would need 30 years and $30 million. That's a lot of money. And as I talk about now, this next generation of designer, and please be clear, when I say generation, it's not an age thing, it's just who's coming into the industry. This conversation around money and salary. Oh, these young people, they're asking for $70,000. And when I was a designer, I was an intern and I took out the trash and I licked the floors and I did all these other things. They need to pay their dues. Well, did you enjoy doing that? Then why the fuck you want them to do it now? Well, we can't just give them $80,000. Tell me where in the US, cost of living has not increased 19 to 14% every year. But yet our industry constantly wants us to operate from a place of scarcity, and they want to pay us less and demand more. Then you're burned out and miserable. And when it comes to people of color, because this industry ain't for us, they give you less. That is the problem with our industry. That is why we have a diversity problem. You don't see people in these schools, in these community centers, kind of saying like, hey, look, you could be a designer, not an architect, an interior designer. You don't need to call me an interior architect. I'm an interior designer. You can call me a decorator if you want to, because I do pick pillows, drapery curtains, and all those things too. It's a big part of what I do, right? But I just feel like the diversity piece we're complicating it. Give me the money. Give us the money. Just make it a money play. It's a money play. If it doesn't affect the company's bottom line, then you're not doing anything. They all started initiatives. What did you do? I served on a board, and they were like, let's create a scholarship. I said, okay, great, cool, let's go. Well, who's gonna give out the scholarship money? Is it gonna be an application? Is it gonna be this? I'm like, oh my God, just give the money to the coloreds. Like, stop complicating it. And then 2-3 years later, we still wondering why, like, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Nothing's really, and it's kind of sad. Oh my God, I'm gonna get emotional. It's kind of sad.
It's stunning.
It is.
Right? How little, and they all talked about, I mean, we were talking about, not to shout out about Herman Miller again, but I mean, we talked about Herman Miller, who was tripping over themselves to tell us all the things that they were going to be doing, and yet...
They didn't do a thing. They let a black man put a bunch of graffiti on the back of a chair. That was the thing.
Right.
Hey, I hope you got a lot of money doing that. But it's long-term money that I want, not the initiative at Black History Month. Don't ever invite me to nothing at Black History Month. I will always say no. It's deep invested money. I had a teacher, she told me, Metropolis magazine, they had a round table at dinner. I didn't go, Sequoia went. And they were talking about how, like, well, how can we get these kids into firms? And this teacher said, look, I'm not gonna, she taught at Bowie State University in Maryland at HBCU. She said, I'm not gonna send my students to your firms because you don't know how to treat them. Our industry does not know how to treat their people. The one thing I loved about COVID is it made businesses realize the true asset is the people who work in those companies. And I was at a dinner, and they're like, our folks don't want to come back to the office because your culture was trash, stupid. Like, you don't even want to hear that. But now there is this reckoning of people, I don't want to go back to the office. People of color are saying like, hey, there ain't no thing as quiet quitting, whatever, right? It's companies have to realize the way they were treating people were inequitable. The way they were treating people of color was even worse. And until we like make peace with that as an industry, people are gonna get tired of it. And then it's like, well, how can we as a company, how can we like represent like, the African diaspora? Well, I'm black and I don't even know what that is. I'm just regular old American black, right? I'm a black American. And we're trying to make it too, well, there's black design. And it's just design. Just search for the story of the people. And if you do a little history and research, there's always an indigenous story or a story of people of color. And just pull that thread too. Don't try to make it special that like black designers design differently. We don't. We do it the same as everyone else, with passion, texture, more vibrancy. We gotta stop trying to figure out like, oh, they're special. What can we do? Just give me the money. It's about the money. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to skip a lot of this.
Yeah, we can skip a lot. But go back one. Go back one.
Type here.
One back. One more. See that little TM right there? I just want those.
Yeah. She wants to shout out her trademark.
No, playing.
Yeah.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. This poor housing now, y'all. Remember that. I want y'all to remember that. Just we gonna keep it. That's a Bernhardt chair. composition hospitality, and I say it because this is what our industry always does. Well, you have to use the office manufactured furniture in the office spaces, and you use the hospitality furniture in the hospitality projects, and you use healthcare furniture in the healthcare projects. But why? Why can't you mix it all up? And I think we market these segments, and then when we market segments, all the healthcare buildings look the same. All the educational buildings look the same. And now there's this new thing. Have you all heard this? And if you have, don't you ever repeat it again. Resomercial.
Oh.
I said, well, what is that? Oh my gosh.
Just break the mic, don't worry.
Sorry. They were like, oh, it's this combination of residential and commercial. I'm like, Jesus, fix it. Just design. When we were all locked in our houses for COVID, what were the things that brought you comfort? Your pillows, your cozy blankets, all your knickknacks. The decoration. That our industry is trying to get too heady. Now they're doing. I'm not a decorator. I'm an interior architect. Shut up. You create space for people. And space for people is about softness. I don't care what the building type is. That's what's wrong with our industry. So we take the so-called hospitality brands and we put it in the poor housing. Now, one of the things that always makes us we procure. I have a procurement company. It's called Lucidity Procurement, because what would happen is, that's a Sonneman light fixture. The GC would say, oh my God, determined by design, specified this really expensive fixture. And I'd be like, but did we though? And I would be in the meeting with the GC, the architect, the owner, and they would say, yeah, and I'm gonna use the example, it was a 4-inch square light fixture. This is why we started a procurement company. They said, yes, this 4-inch square light fixture that DPD specified is $400 a fixture. I was like, is it though? I was texting my rep, I said, Marissa, why would you let me specify a $400 square recessed light fixture? She says, Kia, here's a copy of the sales quote. We quoted $175 to the lighting sub. Now, while all this is happening behind the scenes, here comes the GC. Don't worry, we have a valued engineer option that's $275. So by the time they've rolled out their option, right, that valued engineer with their preferred manufacturer, because they get a kickback, I'm getting the receipts from Marissa and sending it to everybody. And I said, hey guys, well, Marissa told me this is $175, so even with a 60% markup, my fixture is still cheaper. And he's like, oh, really? Where did Don't do that. Don't do that. Now, mind you, I represent everything in our industry, and I'm in a room full of white people, and I'm the only black person, only woman, and I cuss. And I look, always 10 years younger. It throws them off every time. So we started to procure. Now, is anyone going to walk into the room and say, oh my God, that 4-inch square recessed light fixture changed my life? No. But if you did it with that, you're doing it with the wall covering, you're doing my decorative fixtures, you're doing my flooring that I want, you're doing it with the fire feature that I want. So we started to procure all of our lighting. We procure all of our decorative finishes for our development partners. You're going to clutch your pearls, and we don't mark it up. I saw that, wow. She was like, wow.
What?
Mind blown. But what do you mean you don't mark it up? It's this inherent markup to make design overly overpriced that leaves it not accessible to the people who need it the most.
Sounds like you got a lot of agreement in the audience.
Who said? I got a $30,000 cool edge backlit light system in this project because we fought for it. Now, how many professionals do we have in the room? All right, this is our least favorite word, value engineer. When that comes, it's just like a knife to the heart. But by the time you value engineer, do we know what value engineer is? Value engineering? We do? We good? A little bit? If it's no, say it. Yes,
yeah.
Yes, Paige. Value engineering, this is how I describe it. Your parents gave you some money, and you was like, I'm gonna go to Saks, and I'm gonna get an outfit. And then they like, ooh, you don't got that much money. So you know that black dress you thought you were gonna get from Saks? You need to get it from Target. You gotta strip it down a little bit. So you think you have a lot of money, and when the project goes bust, all the really nice things you want, you gotta get the lesser version. You can't do the wall covering, you gotta do the high gloss paint. You can't do the decorative light fixture, you just gotta do a surface mount, right? Value engineering is stripping it down, right? So when most firms get to value engineering, it's kind of at the end of the contract. You burnt through your hours, you want your team billable, and they're just like, okay, I guess we just gotta take the value engineered option. And my team, they're like, Kia, they said, what'd they say? Okay. And now they know how to advocate and they fight, and we ask for receipts. If a developer or a sub will not show us the cost of a fixture, oh, we'll procure it. Give it to us. give it to us. And then we charge our client a fee for procuring. And I still make big money with no markup. Remember that. A lot of money. Because now we procure the light fixture, we procure the wall covering, we procure the LVT, we procure the floor. Lucidity Procurement procures all the building material from the drywall out. That's a lot of product and a lot of fee. And now we're doing exclusive partnership with the Healthy Building Materials Labs and some of their vendors, right? And using Chem Paint, healthier product. So there's not a green premium. Making money by doing the right thing. Because I want people to have access to elevated spaces. That's the Phillips Collections table. Oh, this is my favorite. This is my favorite art. This is this artist from Maryland. His name is M.A. Booker. You got Winnie, Rosa. All these just, for us, it's key for people to walk through the buildings and see themselves in the art. We put a screening room in this project, and they were like, a screening room? Yes. When we design for poor people, you know, they need a multi-purpose room. Okay. What's gonna happen in the multi-purpose room? Well, they need to have baby showers, and they need to have this and that. I'm like, okay. And it's just these folding tables and chairs. But why? Oh, because, you know, they'll tear it up. But really, though, the rich white girl who went to GW and works on the Hill, I've seen her get drunk and tear shit up. So, but no one says her building has to be trash, right? I remember one time I was at a hotel lobby, and I was at something, and I watched this man take a figurine, like a figurine dog. He wanted it so bad, and it was glued down. This in a fancy hotel. And he couldn't get it. He took the whole show. Said, that is tenacity, right? So when our developers say, can you glue all those accessories down? Absolutely not. Well, they'll take it. No, they won't. But 6 months later, Kia, the residents take so much pride in the space. They make sure everything is back exactly where it's supposed to be. I had a homeless man, a former homeless man tell me once, I never thought I could live in a building like this. This is the work I get to do. The average income for this house is 30 to 25%, and there were 10, they're called UFAS, like for permanently, chronically homeless people. So homeless people live in this building too. And when I say that, it's not to like, it's to not dress it up, to actually call the thing the thing. I could try to dress up my work, but if I dress it up, it strips away the impact. It strips away like, oh, this looks like luxury affordable. Don't ever say that. It's just well-designed housing with a good concept. That's what it is. Those are my Studio TK chairs. My Andre World chairs. So we do this thing called Good, Better, Best. And every time we give the GC a designed element, we give them 3 ways to execute it. And this is a good, because on the column, it's just wood, right? So we give them wood veneer, wood laminate, wood wall covering, right? So when you give people options, everybody like a deal or a sale, even a developer. But we got wood laminate, wood wall covering, and you can't tell the difference. But as a designer, our job was to give 3 options, so when they do have to value engineer, it doesn't get stripped down and just become paint, especially in our units. I hate level 1 granite. It is the bane of my existence. Next to that little 4-inch stainless steel cabinet pull that you see in the luxury apartment buildings. And we put on our finish schedule for the units, you know, group 1 quartz. And just put a group 1 quartz, which we know price is comparable to level 1 granite. The GC will say it's too expensive. So now we just be lying. This is what we do. We'll be like, our first selection is a group 3 quartz. Then we give a group 2 quartz. And then the very last option is the option we really want anyway. And then we always get group 2. And I'm like, great, great. So we've had to learn to work the system and understand all the processes and people involved. Same thing goes with our tile. Now, as designers, we could specify 12 tiles from 18 different manufacturers. Yes, I said what I said. And you'd be like, but for why? So that means a subcontractor, which is typically a tile installer, might be a small business, it might be a minority business, and that means that tile subcontractor has to go to 12 different manufacturers to get all that tile we designers just put on the project. They might not get the same pricing for every manufacturer. So what we do is we do like products. So we use 1 tile manufacturer on the entire building. That's a lot of volume, right? So when I call my rep Nancy, be like, hey Nancy, I really want this fancy tile in the lobby, but you got the whole units. Nancy's gonna give me better pricing because she got the whole product, the whole deal. But and then this is what designers do. Well, the sub said they had an alternative. Let's just swap it out. Okay, because the project's nearing completion if they're buying tile. And then all that work Nancy did for me as my rep, that just falls by the wayside. No, it's your job to fight for the spec. Because Nancy was with me. She was giving me all the options. And that's about people. I'm in the business of people. That's why we do the work that we do. Our concept here was zones etched in travel. That's my Romo fabric. I love Romo. It's a Vermont table, Vermont farm table. My composition chairs. Man, I love lighting. That's my favorite part of a project. But this is one multifamily silver awards. Capital Vista has won best interior design project, not best affordable housing project. I mean, we won some of those too, but we won best interior design just because the work is good. Just because the work is good. It's one of my favorite projects. This is called Art. They are actually all my favorite projects. I'm lying. I love them all. I do, actually. This developer was like, we can't have any soft seating. Everything has to be vinyl and hard. Why? Because these people will have sex on the furniture. Why, Sway? Why? And I was like, well, does it all need to be vinyl or do you just need contract grade? And then you gotta explain double rugs. Now, sometimes I do get exacerbated with a lot of my development partners, but people don't know what they don't know. And this one I had to go back to therapy. One time I cussed the client out and I used no cuss words. So that's how bad it was. And I had to have a gut check moment and was like, that's not about her. That was about me. And you can't do the work of advocating for others if like you got your own, inner emotional turmoil, right? Because I have to do the work of the people, my team has to do the work of the people, I have to be whole and healed from the inside out. And my team they knew every Monday from 1 to 2, Kia going to see her therapist, yup, right? No shade, no shame,
No.
right? But because when they say things like that to me, I get mad. What? And then we got those are my Andre World chairs. I love it, yeah. We didn't get to space plan this project. We came to this project late, and I wanted to move this community room, Because some architect thought a community room would be great with no windows.
Okay. But we still made it feel bright, airy. We came to this project like super, super late. Like they already had stamped permit drawings, and we still changed. We changed every architectural finish in here. They had a $7 a square foot 12 by 24 tile. I got an 18 by 36 tiles for $3.50. So I look like the hero, right? We look like the hero, but I love this project. And this is some other fancy stuff, fancy words.
But so
That number's doubled.
yes.
That number's doubled. So our new initiative, we turned 10 in September. It was very cool. A C student has runs a business for 10 years. C's get degrees, guys. It's not about the A. I fire A students. Don't put your GPA on your resume. Nobody cares. I'm serious.
Well, and I mean, all joking aside with that, what do you, because you do hire a,
I do. We do hire.
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you look for, and what do you find really tells you what this person is going to be?
Okay. Get your notepads out. We look for, if I was to give you a thick Sharpie, a roller trace, and a space plan, could you lay out a lobby 6 different ways in an hour? And maybe, did somebody say damn? Or no? No? We good over there? All right, good, great. That's what we look for. Can you show passion? The way our team does our concept research is a very collaborative approach. Are you passionate? Are you willing to trust your teammate? We do this thing, we have what we call a show house model, where we have 3 players, player 1, 2, 3. Player 1 gets a lot of square footage, player 2 gets a little less, player 3 does like the corridors and all the finishes. And it's a big trust exercise, right? Can you trust that if your team member, if you didn't get to select the materials, but your other team member did, can you trust their selections? All of our designers get to present. That is one thing that they need to work on, is their presentation skills. And not being overly animated, but just confident in their skin. Like, I remember one time I was teaching, and the student, she was doing like this. I'm like, stop moving your leg. She's like, I'm just nervous. I'm like, just relax, right? They're not saying sorry every 5 minutes. They're not saying, like, they're unapologetic. They're who they are. Space planning, concept development. Knowing how to execute during the work hours. We had to fire a SCAD student, because they're the #1 program in the nation. And we'd be like, well, why'd you make that selection? Well, because the material was in Inkscape. Okay, but what is it? It's wood, LVT, tile, real wood. They never were able to connect the dots of rendering the thing to look like the thing what was supposed to be, to actually selecting the thing. And then they could only really execute between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. But why are you working at that hour? Because in school I learned all day and I worked at night. That's not how it goes. Can you execute? Start the task, finish. Now I'm gonna say young people, like real young people, they don't have FFO. Figure it the fuck out. They ain't got no problem solving skills. I should trademark that one.
Call the lawyer. Do you need to call the lawyer real quick? Okay.
They can't figure it out, and it's just like, yes, ask questions. But at a certain point, it's like, did you dig a little? It's like when you search on Google. The first page is like 15 things. Sometimes you gotta go to page 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So a challenge we give a lot of our potential new hires is we'll be like, find the email address for this particular real estate developer. That means you know how to dig. Because most people email addresses are formatted 1 or 2 ways. First initial, last name at whatever. First name dot last name at last name something version. This particular developer, their email address is the people's initial, so like JGB. I think I had to go to page like 12 of Google to find this developer. That's how bad I really wanted to work with this developer. They ended up being trash, but whatever. It's that type of problem solving skills, being unafraid to say you don't know, that I think a lot of young designers are missing. But space planning is critical for us. Orienting furniture. People do a little furniture layout, and they'll be like, chair here, table all the way over there. Well, how am I gonna put my cup down? Like, are you truly thinking about how people are going to move to the space? Well, I can do Revit, I can do a rendering, okay, that's cute. All right, great. And depending on where you go work, they're gonna farm that out anyway. We look at portfolios, sorry to tell you this, probably for 5 minutes. So all those, I'm gonna rework my portfolio again and again and again and again and again. Ain't got no process work in it. Got 30 renderings showing me the same thing 3 different ways with bad angles, looking down like this on the perspective. Who looks at space like that? Less is more. Show me your process. How do you think? And can you explain to me how you got there? And be excited. I'll have students, they'll show us our portfolio. It's their capstone, it's their thesis. I'm like, yeah, I did a healthcare facility, and I did this, and I did this. I'm like, well, did you like the project? Yeah. You sure? Because you kind of blah. Show me, like, oh my God, I did this project, and I love this material, and this thing was exciting for me. What is the stuff that excites you? Well, I have to be professional in the interview. Fuck professionalism, that's coded language. That's coded language for conformity. People say, I'm not professional, I'm Kia. And I work in all rooms. It translates, trust me. That's why I got all the awards.
Did we mention that? Did we mention she's got a lot of awards? Did we mention that? I'm gonna open it up to questions if people have questions, and you can signal me. And I think we're gonna have a microphone and have people come. But I know that you do spend a lot of time working with students at another place of education that we won't name, but.
Okay.
I mean, no, I'm joking. I mean,
Yeah.
you mentioned SCAD already, so sure, we can bring them up again. But you do talk about this issue with many of your students, whether it's lacking the confidence, as we were saying earlier, or maybe they just haven't figured out how to be comfortable being truly passionate about what they're showing and what they're doing. But that is such an important thing that they're going to need to learn to sell themselves.
Yeah, and this is where, and this is always that very daunting part. They're like, oh my God, ask questions. And you're like, should I say something? A closed mouth don't get fed. And this is probably the most rawest you're ever gonna get it, so you might as well ask now.
Yeah.
But back to, so I teach at SCAD as a full-time faculty member. And they have a lot of Asian students, and English is their second language. And I had this one student, she was like, Professor, but my English isn't good. I said, my English isn't good either. What's your point? And I had to tell her, stop worrying about whether your English is good or whether you say the word perfectly. Just say the things. Everyone flubs their words, right? Who has never not flubbed a word or mispronunciated something in the moment of excitement or whatever? The excitement will translate more than whether or not you said the word correctly. And that's what I try to get them to kind of realize. But I also don't let them cop out either, because English isn't their first language. You have to try. Effort. I'm big on effort. I'm really big. Are you trying? Right? And I think that's what I teach them. And I also teach them, this is gonna sound so like, smile. All that nervous energy kind of dissipates when you smile, right? You ever see somebody cute, you're like, oh, hey. And you all confident because you think you look fly and they fly and you smiling. Same thing goes when you're presenting. Bring that same energy. That's what I teach my students. And, also kind of like speak up from your diaphragm, like from here. Can I hear you in the back of the room? And I think this is where academia, what time y'all assignments typically do when y'all got an assignment? What time they do? 7, what's that, for real? Midnight? That, no. Let me, for my students, all of their projects are due at 6 p.m. the day before class. Because if you up till midnight, that means you waited till the last minute and your project trash anyway. I take it back, it's not trash. At a certain point, you gotta know when to stop. So it's back to my professionals. Tell me a time where you had a presentation and everything was perfect. The rendering was perfect, the blue rendered the perfect blue. Never. At a certain point, you have to learn to stop and then get ready to sell. So if you were up till 3 in the morning and the project was due at 6 a.m., then you can go in classroom, then you're tired, then your professor gonna bring in the guest lecture, you're gonna look blah, you're just gonna roll out of bed. I'm just be like, dang, you should have got a good night's sleep, put it down. And a lot of times I'll see my students on the computer. This one girl, she was like, well, I'm trying to get the glass to render perfectly. Girl, don't nobody care about that. They focus on what's the big moment. That's what students need to learn how to do. Rest, sell. Rest, sell, smile. Ask for a lot of money.
There you go. Karen, yes.
Got a mic. Do I need to use it?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Yes,
Hi.
please.
Hi, Kia. Love your jacket. Thank you for your service, first of all. My question is, I love the space you choose to operate in, talking about the low income and the poor people. Do you get approached for work you don't want to do, and how do you go about saying no, especially if it is really good fees that comes outside of that core passion of yours?
Great question. So we don't just do multifamily. We do retail design as well. So this is the benchmark for the type of work that we do. Is it a person or persons or group of people who don't have access to elevated spaces? So we did a boutique lingerie store for breast cancer survivors of color, right? And that, okay, I love them all. That was one of my favorite projects.
That was really your favorite.
But I don't ever have, we turn down market rate work. That's not what I want to do. We'll turn down, someone was like, I remember in the height of all the DEI stuff, Hilton was like, we need firms of color. Okay, you know. And then we had to do a little rigmarole, and I was like, you know what, no thanks. I don't want to design the third tier Hilton brand project and their brands there. I'm gonna pass on that. And I don't need to worry about taking the sexier project to get better fees, because my fees are good just in the projects that we do. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, because the minute I start taking on work for fee, then we lose our ethos. I know there's this narrative that was populating of like, oh, stop trying to find work. Work isn't about passion. Bullshit. I'm passionate about what I do, even when it's hard. Even when it's hard, that's how I know it's the right work to be doing. Oh, young people, they just want to jump because they're passionate. Good, let them. If your job is miserable, you don't like it, if you underpaid, leave, find another one, and I'll help you. And I'll help you. Remember, they've always add 35%. Your fee will always be good if you add 35%.
There you go. If you take away nothing else from tonight's talk,
No, they got some more
add the
stuff to take away.
35%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question from the audience? Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
I have 2 questions. The first is about your projects. I noticed that there were a lot of new construction projects, but do you do remodels or rebuilds?
Yep. So we are actually working on two projects with NYCHA. One is Audubon, Bethune, and Marshall. And then we are also doing Fulton, Elliott, Chelsea. I think it's 18 buildings, 11 different buildings types. This was all existing. So we do kind of existing construction and renovation projects. For some of our projects that are smaller, like those aren't small projects, but we also do what we call equitable design services. It's a flat fee and it's only 45 days of engagement, because a lot of times, like if you have like a garden style apartment community and we want to touch the units, we want to touch the corridors, those are really critical experiences. We'll still do our concept development, and then we'll work on those projects for a flat fee and hand over a finished schedule. All the same ways, like light products, equitable design options, and then we hand that over to the developer. So we do renovation work too, because we were missing the mark there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome to hear. My second question is about your firm and how you are scaling yourself, empowering your team, and effectively, standing back a little bit from the design work. What have you learned? What's worked? What hasn't worked? And how long has that taken?
Oh man, so my team exploded in size in 3 years. It went from 2 people to 10 in 3 years. And I think trust is a big part of that. I trust my team because they good humans. So that made it easy. The hard part was, holy poppycock, you got 9 people, that's 9 Autodesk license. All this paper. I was not prepared for that. Then it's kind of like there were a lot of systems, like processes in place that we did not have. And I feel like newer generations of people coming out of academia, they're used to a rubric, right? And I had to be fair in that, if that is how they understand how tasks are supposed to be done as a company, we had to create some processes and some checks and balances for our team so they knew what to do when we weren't, if I or Sequoia wasn't around. So that was a kind of a learning curve, but also making sure that they weren't too rigid. That was hard. In ProPrac, no one told me about, so I gotta get a 401k for my company. How do I do that? I gotta get health insurance for my team. How do I do that? A lot of that stuff was hard. And you talking to an insurance broker and they're like, well, what policy do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. I've always had insurance through the military. And then again, how did I overcome them? At the end of the day, I go back to how should people be treated? So we had a team member, her and her wife were trying to have a baby, and we didn't have a maternity policy. For no reason that we never had anyone get pregnant. So I would go out and I would meet people and I'd be like, hey, what's your company's maternity policy? I was just asking random folks. And then they would tell me, and I was like, so let me get this right. A person decided to have a baby, and I've never not heard anything different. Babies are expensive. And then you're gonna reduce their pay? And they're like, yeah, that's what maternity leave is. They get reduced pay, they only get X amount of time. I was like, well, that's kind of shitty, because they just had a baby. Why would I reduce their pay? Why would I only give them X amount of money and all this X amount of time off? So now I'm telling my mom, I was like, Mom, I think we're gonna give her 16 weeks and 100% of her pay. And she said, oh my God, here, you cannot do that. I said, but why not? That's what I would want as a person. And that is how we decided to set up our maternity leave policy. The books didn't tell me what to do. I would call people, I would call the city governmental agencies and ask for guidance. At the end of the day, running a business is truly about how do you want to treat your people? And that's how you keep them. So anytime I had a business challenge with that extreme growth, if I couldn't find an actual step-by-step thing, it just boiled down to what's the best for the people. And that's how I make a lot of my business decisions.
Last question.
Hi, Kia. I don't have a question for you. I just want to give you a very big compliment. I've been hanging off of every word that you've said. And the thing that I'm taking away from today, I'm a brand new designer and I'm not formally trained. I've sort of pieced it together over the years with some education, experience, and whatnot. And the best gift that you've given me tonight is that you are not trying to conform to anything. There's no right way to do it. And that when it's yours, you get to decide. And that's really what I've been trying to do. And you're validating me with that. Is like, guess what? If you're starting your own thing, you don't have to do this, this, and this. If it's your thing, you get to decide. And this is how you're going to do it. And everything that you've said has validated me for that tonight. And I think that's important for everyone to hear, is that there is no one way to do it. If it's yours, you do it your way, and you hold your head up high, and you don't apologize for it, and that's the beauty of it. So thank you very much, and congratulations for all of these well-deserved awards, and just thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh. Well, you picked a good one to hang on every word.
Can I tell a story about that?
Do.
I love that because this is my least favorite question that I get asked all the time. Who was your mentor? Did you have any mentors? And I remember when I first started my business, I would call people. I would look for other women of color and be like, hey, can I meet you for lunch? Can I just have coffee? I want to just learn your story. Like, you made it. And I'm pretty persistent. And they would not respond to me. And for a while, I'm not gonna lie, for a while it affected me. So now when people say, who was your mentor? Me. I am my own hero. No one. Yeah, there's a t-shirt for that too. It's not trademarked though. Wait, it might be.
$25, we can get it for you. No problem.
But no one is gonna advocate for you more than you do. And I remember one of those women, I reached out to her because I made it now, I'm it. She had reached out to me on LinkedIn. She was like, oh my God, I love about your success. I would love to connect. I was like, nope, because I had messaged you 10 years ago, and my therapist said I should work on that because it's a little petty. But
yeah, how's that coming along? Yeah.
It's good, it's good. But you are your own hero. You are it. I am it. I am it. I am enough. I am it.
What do you say on your site? You say exceptionally you?
Exceptionally you, yeah. And it plays out. What time is it?
I know, we got to get you.
We gotta
get you out of here.
Okay, can I tell one more story?
Yeah,
And
tell
I'm
one
gonna
more
shut
story.
up, I promise.
I think you got a pretty warm audience. I think they're engaged.
Someone asked me one time, like, have you always been this outgoing? Have you always been yourself? So my dad was an alcoholic and my brother was in and out of jail. So my dad was an alcoholic and in and out of jail. My brother was in prison. And, you know, that means my brother needed everything. Everything was about Cody. And I love him. I adore him. And for a long time, like, nobody saw me in my family. My dad didn't see me. My brother didn't see me. My mom didn't see me. But when I did something good, they saw me. And I was like, oh my God, do more good things, be more successful. So a long time, my success was rooted in just wanting to be seen. I wanted to be seen. And I do a lot of like speaking engagements, and for the first like 2 or 3 years, it was hard because there was such this validation from being acknowledged in such a way that I had not gotten in my childhood. And then I had to start to see myself. I had to see myself. And that's why it's about being exceptionally you and truly, truly seeing yourself for who you are, exactly where you're at, and as enough.
And as enough.
And as enough.
Well, it's a lot of important lessons that
Yes.
you've imparted. And will you please join me in thanking Kia for tonight?
Thank you.